So, speaking of Diddy, let's touch on the Mr. McMahon miniseries, right? This was released a few days ago on Netflix, and I checked it out. The moment they announced it, well, the moment the trailer dropped, I was like, but wait, nah, and Monday Night Raw moving to Netflix in January, so why are we doing this?
Right.
But to the show's credit, they kind of explain why in a sense, but I'll get to that in a bit, right? So, I mean, when it comes to Vince McMahon, right? I mean, whether you know about wrestling, whether you care about wrestling, that you know about him, you know the name, you know what he represents. I mean, he is like the full embodiment of WWE, right? Or WWF, right?
Exactly.
You know, he is the embodiment of it. He's the one who created it in the first place, you know. And yeah,
right, you know,
he
take it from it. He take it to new heights. I mean, I can't say he take it from the dad. You know, he's Vince McMahon Jr., but he carried it to the next level.
Yes.
You know,
and any wrestling fan will say, right? Any wrestling fan, any sports fan, any sports entertainment fan will say, when it comes to just elevating and evolving a brand, right? You know, a sports brand,
right, exactly.
Like we did, undeniable. There's no denying how influential he is.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I remember there's a great I forget the interview, but he has a great interview about when Ted Turner called him, you know, because Ted Turner formed WCW around, I forget when it was.
It was in the mid 90s, yeah.
Right, and he basically just to counter to, he's like, yeah, he called Vince and he like, I don't know if this is an actual story, but this how Vince is telling apparently, is that, well, you know, hey Vince, I'm in the wrestling business, and Vince told him, that's good, I'm in the entertainment business.
I heard that, yeah.
I mean, look, I think WCW was solid, but it never hold a candle to WWF.
Agreed.
Raw.
And especially that
when
era, because remember, up until it's...
especially when the Attitude Era kicked in.
Right,
and still to this day, still to this day, the height of the franchise. So from, I don't know, 96 to 2001, that period. So it was, it was Shawn Michaels, the rise of Austin, the rise of The Rock, kind of the rise of Triple H, that period. And then right when that ended around 2003 or so. That is when John Cena, it became more PG and a little more kid friendly. But to me, the height of the popularity, that is when I think I forget who was the what do you call it, boy? Mike Tyson.
Where Mike Tyson was a guest referee.
That's when
Stone Cold against Shawn Michaels.
In WrestleMania. Right.
Which the show also touched on, right?
Yeah, so to me, it's the most nostalgia of that period, in my humble opinion.
That's true.
So is that?
Yeah, and a quick side note though, when I first got cable, that was in 2000. That was when WCW was on its way out, but yes, the Attitude Era was still on a roll though, and I will never forget. Seeing that moment where Vince say, "Yes, I bought out WCW." Right? I don't remember the full details, but I remember seeing that. I remember it being simultaneous where it happened, right? Because there's
a whole thing
time ago. TNT used to show WCW and USA used to show Raw, right? So there was a point in time where one show would go on a break and I would go and see, this was going on here. I will go back and forth, right? But the catch is, I think Nitro, Monday Night Nitro used to go on for 3 hours. It used to go from 9 to 12, 8 to 11, right? And I think Raw used to go
for same time as WWF here.
Okay, so I used to flip back and see what was going on. Yeah, you know?
Right. No, right. Well, that is when everything will change because I think the World Wildlife Fund,
WWF.
To sue them, they had to change the name.
And then they did
around that same time.
There was WWE.
Right. Yeah.
I remember.
And then around that time is when they did a story arc that I don't super love, but like I understand why they did it this way, is when ECW and WCW teams up to take on the WWF in a merger now. They had a big merger match. And then, they had Austin turn a heel for this storyline. And I kind of understand why they did it, because this was right after 9/11. And so they didn't want to do some, gross, Islamic, anti-Islamic thing or anything like that. They beyond that at this point. But at the same time, they wanted to prop up a USA character. So a character who was a heel for the most part, they had to kind of quickly turn it into a face, into a baby face. And that was Kurt Angle,
Yes.
right? Remember, Kurt Angle was, Olympic winner. He was Mr. USA, but he was a heel for the most part until this point in time. So they effectively took the change. And again, I didn't super love it, but it was an understandable change. They made Austin a heel for this period of time, and it made a lot of sense. And I didn't super love this. This is around the time I get a little too big for it. I feel I was getting a little too big for it, and then I just kind of around that time I kind of stopped watching. Like I kind of keep up with it. My younger cousins were still into it, and I was like, "Hey, what going on?" And they really like John Cena. I was like, "All right, I don't know who that is, but eventually I'll learn who that is." It's like, "All right, cute, right? Whatever."
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, this was the night times. This is when the real. So we had to fast forward to the real dark shit.
Yeah. So, just before I get to the review, right? So, because eventually, like throughout the 2000s up to now, you'll just hear things about this guy, stuff that he did, stuff that he did behind the scenes, some sexual misconduct stuff here or there, whatever.
Right. So the only working thing, the only story I know about this was Sable. I heard a lot of rumors about Sable, like why she kind of just vanished and disappeared, because she just disappeared, like just almost overnight. And she was like the biggest thing ever. And I heard she basically I kind of just gathered that they just wanted to have her do a story, and she didn't like the story, and then, it was a thing. And I heard that it was apparently supposed to be a big lesbian thing and something like that. Like it's supposed to be like real salacious and pornographic. And all right, well, I can understand why she might leave from something like that. A lot of wrestlers reasonably conservative from what I gather, so I can imagine why she won't want to do this. Maybe it's a whole thing, but from what I gather, it's like it's much more than that. No, it's not just a storyline she didn't want to do.
Yeah,
it go deeper than that, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. But just to jump into the show itself, right? So my fear going into this, right, was how this subject matter was going to be handled, right? So I'll put it like this, right? This is not Surviving R. Kelly.
Right.
I say this because I know a lot of people will go into this expecting that.
Yeah, right. I thought it would have been that too. I heard it wasn't that.
No, it's not that, right? It would have been an easy way to do it, but trust me, it would rub people off the wrong way. Because look, I love the Surviving R. Kelly series. I say love because of just what the show is about, just basically breaking down, like destroying the image, the public image, the romantic image of R. Kelly. That's what it did, right?
Yeah,
but it did that by getting the actual victims of his many years of just chicanery, right? To come out and speak out and say all the things that he did.
I also thought this would have been like something like he the Nickelodeon fellow, the fellow from Nickelodeon.
Oh, that I've not seen. The one
I watched that earlier this year. I watched that very early in the year.
It was Dark something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, Dan Schneider.
Yeah,
Dan Schneider is his name. Yeah, I thought it would have been something like that.
Yeah, but is the name of the show? I'm trying to remember. Some dark something. I can't remember what it is. Right? Yeah, it could have been that too, where it's people who were hurt by him come out and say stuff, right? But it's not that, right? And as you bring up Sable, no Sable. I'm not sure if she's alive or not. I should really look it up, right? I'm not first.
Right, not that she's still alive.
So. Yeah,
but I also heard a couple of rumors, but again, it's one of those things here, kind of just like, well, just accept as a working fact in these spaces, no. So all the other, well, I forget what you used to call them, vixens or whatever you used to call them, but like Stacey Keebler,
this was
divas, thank you, right? Yeah. Trish Stratus and like Stacey Keebler, they were like really popular. I remember those.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that it would have been some kind of misconduct. Like again, it's just the knowing the reality of these spaces. Yeah, it's something you just expect. And I was like, all right, your question is, well, which wrestler kind of gross about it and who not gross about it and who behind the scenes would have do blah, 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 and who would have just turn the blind eye. And so eventually you're waiting for that to come out. Like, again, I didn't think things would have, like, implode the way they did. But, like, eventually a story would have come out of some sort. No?
That's true.
I was like, it makes sense. It's Vince. Like, Vince kind of gross and obvious.
Right. Especially if you remember, like, what he used to do, not just here behind the scenes, but even do in the ring as well, too. So which I'll get into, right?
Right.
So,
exactly.
One thing, I love how the show itself kind of lets you know the approach it or how this came to be, right? And once you see that, you'll understand why the show is the way it is, right? Now, I know for some people, they'll be like, well, this is not what I expected. I expected this full destruction of, Vince's character and all that kind of stuff, like how Surviving R. Kelly was. But no, it's not that at all, right? So, Vince himself was interviewed, right? But this was, I think it was like in 2021 or 2022, right? Where he was interviewed for this show, right? And it's actually from the same people who worked on the Tiger King docuseries, right? Which, of course, entertained us during the dark time, the dark era that was 2020. Yes, that's true, right? So they were behind the scenes, right? Yeah, so those interviews were conducted then. I think it's like up to either 2022 or 2023, right? But they say that the final set of interviews, Vince himself didn't show up. And that was around the time when the announcement came out in January of this year about the first big, allegation, with the employee who talked about, Vince had, did all these really nasty stuff, which I'm not gonna say here, right? And then afterwards, that was when because at the time he had stepped away from the brand itself, from WWE, right? But then afterwards, like right after that, you see he had shares, in the TKO.
Yeah, he did. It was a whole bullshit thing. I remember it ended with him. He was supposed to retire, and then he apparently sell it to the Saudis. It's a whole fucking thing, and it really come across like if, this gonna burn down without him now.
Yeah,
like, he gonna burn this down without him.
Yeah.
That felt like a real dead man switch kind of thing, though.
Yeah.
But then he didn't sell it, and he's still in charge, and it was like, wait, what Vince doing exactly? I ain't too sure going on it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but then more details about that same that same allegation came out, and that's when he stepped out again. Like he removed himself.
All right, exactly. And this was the extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Right, because I think something involving Brock Lesnar, and I didn't get into the details of it, but here it was real gross.
Yeah, but yes, Brock was brought up in those allegations as well too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So again, back to what I was saying here. Yeah, so the interview was going on, and then up went right when the allegation was revealed for the first time, when a certain news outlet, got the information and revealed it. Yeah, that's when he just stopped showing up, right? So up to that point, right, I would say a majority of the show is based off of him himself, Vince, talking about his life and whatnot, right? But what the show does very well, right, is that it shows it's not just about him, not just about him growing as a billionaire and all that kind of stuff, but how the brand grew as well too, along with him, right? So you do see the evolution of professional wrestling. You see it from WrestleMania 1 up until where it is now, right? So, that being said, for some people, especially people like me who've seen a number of wrestling docs in the past and whatnot, also, just on a side note, I strongly recommend, if you haven't, that you should check out this series on Vice TV called The Dark Side of the Ring, right? Excellent.
Right,
show.
I know about it.
It's actually executive produced by Chris Jericho, who is now on AEW, blah, 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 right?
That's the first time I knew about the family, about with the movie earlier this year.
Right, the Iron Claw, right, about the...
Iron Claw, right, yeah.
Von Erichs, that was one of the early episodes, the Von Erichs. I saw that one, right?
Yeah.
But in particular, the fifth season wrapped up, right? The last episode of that season, Dread, talked about how Vince ended up buying over this particular territory, and it was basically the first example of the television wars now. So it was one territory that was running TV, and he just come and just buy that out now. But what
he actually set up a monopoly, because like remember wrestling was real scattered and scattershot.
Yeah,
at the time,
it was territorial.
He really unite them. Yeah, it was very territorial and scattershot, and he just unite everything. And he just is something that nobody expected to happen, because wrestling is kind of more like comparable to the circus, right?
Yes.
It's just a thing, and you show up, and maybe it's just a bunch of people do it together, and it was always fly by night and very almost always call it mercenary work now. I forget the term for it. It's slipping my mind right now. But basically it's just that. It's just, hey, show up, we'll pay you, get out. And Vince master, the dark side of that, unfortunately, is that, he figure out a way to undermine unions and them kind of thing, which you could get into that story with Hulk Hogan, and why one of the many reasons why Hulk Hogan is trash. Where's Coleman and Jesse Ventura, right? That is a whole backstory. Just look up Jesse Ventura and Hulk Hogan, why they don't like each other. Right, but it's all of that. Right. Vince was part of that. Vince pushed all of that. Undermine Jesse Ventura from forming a union and all of that. It's a real drama.
Which also this show touch on as well, right?
Right.
But just to finish up with the Dark Side of the Ring episode, right? Yeah, to me, but then they also showed just how insidious it all was, though, what Vince did, right? And How but what
exactly.
they did so brilliantly, Dread, is that they compared to what happened with him and TKO, how he ended up busting out because of the sexual allegations. Nah. I was like, wait, how did they do that, Dread? Like, I would put it like this. If this I don't think it is a series finale, right? But if it was, boy, that is a hell of a way to go, Dread. Just basically saying, yeah, at the end of the day, fuck you, Vince. And that's just basically ended like Dread. I was like, wow, that was amazing, right? Love that episode. You should really check it out, right? But yeah, so if you are familiar with wrestling docs and you know about, like, you know, what happened in WrestleMania and what happened with Hogan versus Andre the Giant, and, you know, big moments now, you know, whether it's the birth of the Attitude Era or birth of the Ruthless Aggression Era with John Cena, how John Cena blew up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All this stuff will feel familiar to you, right? All too familiar. But if you don't know anything about this material, you will find this stuff very fascinating, right? But what I will say, because I know some people will look at this and be like, but you just kind of tell them things that already know, right? Like, you tell them about Stone Cold, you tell them about Undertaker, you know, 21-0 streak, you know, when that happened and all these other things. I know these things. What does this have to do with Vince? But it actually does have to have a lot to do with him, because yes, when it comes to like the creative decisions behind nearly all these things, it was him, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put like
what's the guy's name? The guy's name who was like a real good writer. What's that man's name?
Not Dave Meltzer, no. But he's interviewed as well.
It'll come to me. Whatever.
Yeah. But what I will argue, right? This is my defense to sure, right? Yes, this stuff is familiar. If you know a thing or two about the evolution of WWF into WWE, yes, this stuff is all too familiar, right? But I see it more like a timeline, right? Because it is easy, like, especially in your case, right? Somebody who never saw the show, right? To say, yeah, Vince is always trash, and I know that from since 2000s when he was accused of blah, blah, blah. But for me, I will say that sometimes you just had to see it play out from start to end. You need
all
to
in one place.
lay everything down on a timeline and see how everything grow, and that's
the higher patterns to start to form.
Yes, because that's what the show does so well. You see certain you know, like they will compare the Montreal screw job, for example, for something else that happened years afterwards. You'll be like, I've seen a pattern here, right? Yeah, you have to see it play out like that, and that's when it makes sense, right? Now, Vince coming out and saying, oh, you know, I didn't know the show was about me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I could get that. And slight spoiler, because he is still his boy, Bruce Pritchard, right, executive director, WWE. Yeah, he and all this a great bit where this is a early 2024 recording, right? He coming out saying, well, I didn't know this is the approach to the show. What kind of thing is this? And then he say, well, this is why I still defend Vince. And this was in January, right after the announcement came out, the allegation came out. He was like, look, regardless of all that, I still defend the man because he do X for me. I don't care what anybody say, all that slander, because this man do this for me, right? So I love how they had that there, right? So yeah, I can understand Vince watching this now and saying, oh, so at the end of the day, all he was trying to criticize me and blah, 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 right? But actually, sorry to say, even with all the good stuff...
Yeah, I don't remember the man's name. Vince Russell.
Russell, that's him. Yes. Vince
Russell. I
think he was there too. He was there too, right? But sorry to say, even with all the accomplishments this man has made and all the sacrifices this man make, there's still some dark, insidious stuff about him. I love how they compare it to his upbringing with his, Vince McMahon Sr., right? Who actually was not there throughout the majority of his life, right up until when Junior actually really got serious with the business. That's when he hooked up with the dad, right? Because he used to be with his stepdad who was abusing him and whatnot, right? But you really do see a pattern, and it touches on something that we know, but again, the way how they frame it here makes a lot of sense. The kayfabe approach to wrestling, right? The blurring of fans to reality, right? What Vince does a lot now, and it's kind of like when you see it again on the timeline, it makes sense. Yeah, he will take. I
know around the 80s time, they really used to hold on to the kayfabe premise.
Yeah.
Say, look, no matter what, don't drop kayfabe at all. You can find John Stossel. That's a classic. Look up John Stossel.
Right.
Kayfabe.
Okay. All right.
And it's just dude this dude, I forget your wrestler name, but this dude, like John Stossel, was like, yo, you're fake, right? And then this dude just starts slapping the shit out of John Stossel. That is the funniest thing ever.
Wow.
And then, the other internet classic, It's Real to Be Damn It, right? It's still Real to Be Damn It.
Yeah,
Look that up. Classic.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Right, yeah.
But, he will take certain, like, okay, like, say, for example, Ted Turner, challenging him with WCW. It's like, all right, I'll do this, right? It's always about competition, right? He will see something and he will capitalize on it. But he wouldn't just leave it outside of the ring. He'll put in the ring as well, too. He will work that into storylines, right? I just see that in a really egregious way with the Attitude Era, especially with how women were portrayed, right? So Trish Stratus is an interviewee, and she talked about how she was on the rise and how they frame she in a still uncomfortable storyline with her being Vince's mistress while Linda was comatose and all. Well, not comatose, but she just like was doped up, so she wasn't really seeing anything and whatnot. And that was meant to mirror how he was cheating behind Linda back and all that kind of thing there. So it's the man just can't help but reflect himself into the ring, right?
Right. In the character, right?
Because unfortunately, and again, you see it in the timeline, it can't just be about the wrestlers, right? It can't just be about the blood, sweat, and tears that they put into that ring. It had to be about Vince. He had to be front and center one way or the other, whether it's through some storyline or him incorporating himself into it, like what he did in the Attitude Era. It was about him, and then they would talk about how his family got roped into it as well too. The stuff they did with Stephanie and how she eventually met, Levesque, right? Paul Levesque, right? Hunter, right? And how the whole little affair, the relationship they had in the ring, on the show, and in real life, and it's all these things.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
You got the height of, listen, in my humble opinion, still to this day, I think Stone Cold versus Vince is still the best feud.
Of course, and they touch on that too.
Yeah, that shit was just so funny. But I remember when it went to
because it touched on it touched on nerve, Dread. Because remember, this is late 90s. Right. This is pre-Fight Club shit. People was mad, but they didn't know why. So it's like, look, my boss letting me down, my boss.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It was up right, the 90s.
Stone Cold representing me. I want to beat up my boss.
It's the same time as Office Space, right?
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right. But no, to me it was, I remember when the plotline went into Stone Cold owning the company because Linda and the rest of the family, team up and help out Austin, and they give the shares thing. And it was legit funny, but it was so weird to why get into such a blatant conceit of the behind the scenes all going on instead of just doing a normal battle argument.
Yeah. And that was always
so you're right,
about Vince, and it goes back way, way, way before, again, timeline, right? It was always about having something so big, so large in life that you had to tune in, you had to pay money, you had to go to this event to see it. So yeah, that's why in WrestleMania 17, still the best WrestleMania ever, he had a fight with his son, and
I remember this.
In the corners was Trish and Linda and Stephanie. He had to bring his family business into it as well too. And there's actually a great moment where Shane McMahon, Shane wanted to run the company, but he felt like he felt like Stephanie was better, right? But that was his storyline. That was his storyline where
it was true. That was his storyline with
it was true.
Yeah, but that was his storyline with the WWF thing.
Yes.
The WCW thing, and Shane take over WCW, and that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And he had and listen again, good drama. But it was kind of weird that they decided to make it like that. I was like, okay, either this is some brilliant storytelling and some genius behind this, take this up, or it reflected the real world, which we find out is kind of both.
It does, and looking at it now, it's real uncomfortable, though. This seeing that this man so bold to do this, right? But he will say, this is the business, and he had, it had to be about him at the end of the day, right? So you can understand why some wrestlers who are interviewed, right, whether it's The Undertaker or Cody Rhodes or Cena or Rock, will say, I respect the man, father figure and all that kind of stuff, right? But there's a great moment near the end where they ask, what his legacy will be, and they're like, I don't know. I can't. So Cena and all say, look, I don't think I'm the right man to answer that question, you know what I mean? So it's like that. It's just so hard to answer that question, right? And again, just seeing how the timeline plays out right to, where we are right now. Yeah, it kind of makes sense that he would be in the position that he's in. So just to wrap things up, right? So where it's left at, just basically saying, look, at the end of the day, as much pull and as much influence as as Vince had. And then nobody really tuned into that show unless it was the Attitude Era, to see Vince. It was about the wrestlers. They're the one who make the brand what it is, and that's why we still tune in right now. You know what I mean? Like at the time of me recording this, less than a week from now is Bad Blood, right? Big event with Roman Reigns and all that good stuff, right? People don't care about Linda and them, Stephanie and them, because they're doing their thing, right? But you can understand Vince being the way how he is, why he had to be front and center as well too, right? And I touch on the reason why.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things I felt that just would kind of burn itself out as a concept. Like, it's a cool idea when you do it once, but like after a while, it's like, all right, well, how many people Vince go have a debate with? And like in some cases it may. Yeah, in some cases it makes sense because managers being part of the battle was always been a thing. Right? What's his name? Paul Heyman, I think.
Yeah.
He was always part of shit. He's a manager. He do a lot of writing.
Well, by the way, he's in it as well too. Yeah, and he. Yeah.
I forget the guy who. I forget the guy who.
Not Eric Bischoff.
Was Undertaker. No, the guy who was Undertaker manager. I think he died. Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer.
I forget the actor.
Yeah, I forgot.
What's his real name? What's his real name?
I forgot his real name. Yeah, I forgot it.
Right. But yeah, like Paul Bearer, same thing. Yeah. So the idea is that he is the ultimate manager. I get it. But yeah, it would have burned itself out after a while. And again, another highlight of the Attitude Era was the whole corporate ministry stuff.
Yes.
Undertaker, they're taking charge, and that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But again, it would have burned itself out. And like that's the thing with Vince. Like, dude, you're funny, but you ain't that fun. And I get that.
That's true.
So yeah.
And you really see in the 2000s, boy, just how again, with kayfabe now, how he like just really accentuated his own persona. Okay, yeah, he was the guy that you love to hate because of how loud and over the top he was, right? But yeah, the show bravely reminds you, there was some really dark shit that was going on, especially with how he treated women, so he touched on Sable, right? And Trish Stratus and other women as well too, and how he incorporate like when he got accused of certain things, when he started getting accused of sexual misconduct, he would bring that up into storylines as well too, like trying to present himself as some kind of weird Lothario or whatever it is, right? But when you look at it now, it's pure cringe, and you could see why he's in the hot water that he is in now, right? But I'll close this, right?
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so like there's a famous meme, and I think that's where it come from, right? Where I think it's Stacy Keibler dancing for him. And there's a meme of Vince getting hype. There's a meme. You look up the Vince McMahon meme with him getting more and more excited, and people just use it to illustrate when you're getting more and more excited for something. Yeah, I think that's where it come from. It's like, and yeah, that I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, like I could understand why this would have slid in the late 90s, but it's sliding now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay.
And the sad part about it, looking at it now though, is that people tune in. That was what our generation was looking at.
Yeah, right. Yeah, anything for the ratings.
Is that what it is? And that was his mindset. It was always about ratings. It was always about the money. That's what it is, right? But I am glad, just to wrap things up though, that the brand could pretty much exist without him, because again,
exactly.
Right. Come to see the wrestlers. That's what we tune in for, the first series, right? But I'll close this and then I'll get to rating, right? The reason why though he never, and he actually said it himself too, is that he just have no intention of retiring. He just figured that if he retires, he dies, right? That's how he sees it, right? But boy, like the man's like in his like late 70s right now, Dread, and he's still like at up to when he left TKO, right? Man still trying to find a way to still be in the brand, to still do work behind the scenes, to still do creative things. It's like, no, bro, like regardless of all these things, all the allegations and whatnot, you could have just duck out, you could have just stay quiet, you could have just let your family.
I really thought he was.
No, because it wasn't just about the money, it was about the attention. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't help yourself, and you see it in that timeline. That's what I love about this show here. You really see the pathological you see the pathological mindset that he have now. You see it from the very beginning up to now. It's all about him. He always want attention. That's why he do all them storylines that you either love or hate or you cringe at, for better or for worse. It was always about him, even the brand itself too. But I'm glad that again now, look at it now, Yeah, the brand can exist without him. Like we don't need him.
Right.
That's the big irony about this whole situation. I love how the show addresses that. Right. So yeah, in closing, though, and I'll let you have final words. Right. In closing, I think that this show did a shockingly solid job, though, in terms of taking all this material, and it's covering it over 6 episodes, about an hour each. It takes all this material, though, and still structure it in such a way that you're not just seeing moments, you're not just seeing reminders or stories like, oh, the Montreal screw job, and the Undertaker streak, and when John Cena make his first appearance, and how the Rock blew up, and all these kind of things. But I know some people may look at these moments and be like, you're not telling me anything I'd already, or you're not telling me anything I don't already know. I came here for the Vince stuff. Where's the Vince stuff? Why am I seeing The Rock? Why am I seeing Cody Rhodes? Why am I seeing all these things? But no, because all that have to do with what Vince was doing behind the scenes. Believe it or not, it all had to do with him, because he was the creative guy behind all this, right? And in a strange way, it all kind of reflects where his mind was at, where he wanted the company to grow, how he approached competition, how he approached his life, and all these kind of things, his family, all these things. It's all reflected in those iconic moments that we know and love, right? It's all there, right? And that's what the show does very well, right? So I would say, if you don't know any of these things, this will be an eye-opener for you. This will be so fascinating for you, right? But for us casual fans, yeah, we will know about the moments, right? We'll know all these things, right? But again, is how it does everything on this timeline. You just see how it all kind of builds and grows. That's where you understand, oh, this is why Vince is the way he is. At the end of the day, is attention. He can't help himself. He always have to find a way to be there, because that is his life, you know what I mean? But yeah, you see how that sort of you see how that blew up now with all this stuff now, and for all we know, there'll be more allegations coming out to the woodwork, and yeah, I mean, but it is what it is. But I can understand why he probably look at this now and say, why are they doing this to me for, blah blah blah. But I'll say this though, this lastly, is that it doesn't demonize him, though. It doesn't humanize him. It just kind of shows him as he is. So he could say what he want, but at the end of the day, it's him. That's what he did. You can't tell me you had some moral reason why you did the really shady things that you did. No, you did it because you were greedy, or you were jealous, or whatever it is. That's what you did. If you mad at that, that's fine, but you made those decisions, right? And that's what the show does. It just kind of shows it right there in your face, right? And last thing, I promise, and I'll wrap up. The one thing I fear, though, is that the rest of the family would have looked bad, right? Especially Linda and Stephanie and Paul as a Levesque, right? Okay, yeah, these are the two who pretty much are running the brand right now. But no, they normal.
No, yeah, I find it
not tarnish at all.
Yeah, for our God, they kind of come across reasonably clean in all of this messy business. Because again, the problem with this kind of stuff is that how much you know what's going on versus behind the scenes versus this kind of stuff. So I don't think it's like a kind of Hugh Hefner and his daughter situation kind of thing. It's not like that. Where if you look up that is like some really, 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 really unfortunate, business.
Yeah.
But if I understand, they would be relatively clean with all of this. But I don't know how worse or better this will gonna get all of it. But I think that the problem is that Vince just kind of unfortunately just kind of pathologically just can't help himself, and like this guy exists without here as far as he's concerned, and now it really burned him now.
Yeah.
Because he really had a chance. He really had a chance to disappear.
He could have retired, but no.
Could have retired and disappear, and and then whoever had to come out and think they could have sorted behind the scenes without it being too public. But once you stay public, the whole thing had to be public. Like that's it. Full stop. Unless it's like an outright, unless these situations are outright hard criminal suit, then fine.
Yeah.
We deal with that publicly. Blah blah blah. But as it is, it's like, no, you had a chance to disappear. Now we had to get cooked. Sorry to say it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's my last point. I have nothing else to say.
Right,
like, if I didn't watch it.
Right.
There's no enough to add yet.
Yeah, but I honestly thought that both Stephanie and Paul would have said, no, Netflix. All right, and then they cancel the deal or whatever it is. So Raw don't Netflix is like, no, we still going along with it. They even mention it in the show too. So it's like, well, it kind of
exactly
now, right?
And it does feel like a kind of hype thing, like, oh well, we moving on from Vince, so come to watch Monday or whatever. Like that kind of bullshit. There's a little add to a time.
Yeah.
But to me, the franchise, it look in good shape after the last WrestleMania. Like that
40,
last WrestleMania was that's such a great sign of things to go forward. It's like, look, wrestling not dead. it doing a little bit of the the one thing I hope it kind of did distance itself from, hopefully, but it probably won't, is the sports washing Saudi Arabia stuff, which I find is some kind of messy business when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
But for the most part, I just think it's a good dimension for where it is. Yeah, wrestling's still popular, it's still decent. People like the New Day is a thing, like, and we even passed them.
Yeah.
And a lot of great female wrestlers popping up now, and it have a future. I don't think it's dead anytime soon. But what killed wrestling, I think, is just the harkening back to the Attitude Era. Look, I love the Attitude Era. That was my time. But it's time to move on now. I didn't really feel it. It was starting to get a little ridiculous at a certain point. But that last thing was like, all right, this feeling like they're moving on to a new future and whoever it is. Moving on.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yeah. So for me, rating-wise, I'm going to give this a decent to strong 4 out of 5, man. I highly recommend that you check it out.
Okay, good.
If you're not familiar with this material at all, trust me, you will learn a lot from it. It will seem overwhelming, but trust me, all of this connects, right?
Right.
If you are
I just reading it. I just seen that people saying how it's not as good as Dark Side of the Ring, but it's still
no. It's like, well, all right, like in. Right, this show is what it is, right? It's about the man, right. It's about the brand, right? But it's not like Dark Side of the Ring, where it just touches on a moment and just how dark it was, right? As the title says, right? Yeah. But like, it's not some like masterpiece of a docuseries or whatever it is, right? If you're familiar with this material, cool, right? But again, it's the structure of it that I praise, right? That's how they put all this together, right? But again, I could see some diehard wrestling fans watching this and saying, again, you're telling me nothing I don't know. I know this.
Right. Enough for the very diehard crowd. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but still, in terms of dissecting who Vince is, I think that it does a solid enough job, right? But I will say, that's minor gripe though. It doesn't completely dissect it. It's not like you're gonna come out of this like, okay, I know everything I need to know about this man, because there's still some things that he didn't even say in those interviews, right? So, it is what it is, right? There's probably much more deeper and darker stuff about him that we don't know, that probably some memoir, some books have out there, about him, right? But for what again, he gave, it's enough.
The stuff with Brock Lesnar, I think, is like the stuff that is like the worst they could probably get. Like, I can't see get any worse than that. But really
it's mentioned, but they don't delve into that, right?
Yeah, I think that is like the worst they could probably get, and I have no idea if who would know what's going on there, or wherever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it.
But still, I would say check it out though. But again, just saying, don't go in expecting Surviving R. Kelly. This is not right. Vince is trash, we should like stop watching WWE because he poisoned you well since the 80s with WrestleMania 1 or whatever. No, it's not like that, right? It's not like that. It's like, I'll put it like this, just to wrap things up, right? It's not like how I felt when I watched Surviving R. Kelly and I literally remove any song or collab with him off of my SD card that I have all my music in. And I say this too because like it still surprises me, right, that with all these, with him being in jail right now, right, and stuff with Diddy and all that kind of stuff, instead our radio stations is play Ignition remix, like if it's normal or stepping in the middle.
It have people who do still look. It have people look. Here's the thing. Look, I don't have a big moral thing with it one way or the other, because my attitude is, once you're not giving him money, I don't really care. Like, look, the art is the art. If you want to delete everything, fine, perfectly fine by me. But that's not something I just go out to do to try to erase the past or anything like that. No matter how bad the person is. Don't care how bad the person is. I'm not that kind of guy. But if you want to do that, I have no thing. I totally understand why you would want to do it. But my attitude is, art and your own memories have to be consistent. Like, that's how I feel about that. So you have to just keep it there. If you don't want to listen to it, like, that's how I feel about R. Kelly. I know it there. It's somewhere in the world. I'm not gonna go out to avoid it or anything like that, but it's just there. Yeah. Like, okay, moving on.
Yeah,
but I don't feel any old how to like to say outright erase the past and say it don't happen. It's not the BoJack Horseman, the show stuff, right? Yeah. If you remember that bit, right? It's not that. Like, history is history.
Right. On a side note, that's kind of like me and Diddy right now, right? Like when it comes to this bad boy stuff, like what he did with Mace and Biggie, like I'll keep that on my phone. Like when it comes to like when you do solo shit, it's like people who
it are people right now. It are people right now who just re-edited Biggie album and cut it out all the PTT stuff.
I want to hear that. I want to hear that. That is so real.
But to be fair, my only thing is that Diddy was just look. I always thought Diddy was a little bit of a parasite. Like, sorry to say it. Like in terms of he had the same problem like Vince. He had to be in dancing up in the thing.
Yeah.
Even Suge Knight called that right person's dead, right?
All in the
like,
videos.
all in the video, yeah, jumping up in like an asshole there. Like, but like we know the real reason for that. Like why he did it is because of the stage presence, not because of the videos. Like a video and an editor could have fixed that for you, or a good director and an editor could have fixed that for you. But on stage, well, we know, again, we're not getting into all of this. We'll talk about this later when time for Diddy to finally sink into go down the drain, right?
Or when 50 Cent actually puts out his docuseries about
right, Diddy, exactly. When it's time to flush, when it's time to fly the pinch and flush Diddy, right?
Yeah, but point is, this show is not designed to make you hate WWE or cringe hard at the Attitude Era, even though there's cringeable things about the Attitude Era.
Listen, it's the damn 90s.
Yeah, it was the Jerry Springer era, right? It was that bullshit.
Exactly. That's what it was. That's a good comparison. In terms of the ratings, that's what the comparison for. Even people that we like today was in the bullshit since then. Like our beloved Oprah, right? You go back and watch.
Yeah.
Set up bullshit used to be played up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. That's really what it was. More comparable to like Jerry Springer.
Yeah, the show itself also mentions that as well too, right? But at the end of the day, folks, and then I'll move on. There's a lot of great when it comes to the brand that is WWE, but there's a lot of bad as well too, right? And yes, the show touches on the great and the bad as well too, right? But especially like when it comes to new wrestlers right now, like especially the ones that you see like on NXT right now, where it's like a new bunch, like newer wrestlers who want to get their big break. Yeah, they will be familiar with the history, the bad stuff, right? I can't even speak for like the female wrestlers, how they could look back at seeing people like Sable and Mickey James and what they went through, right? Still, but thankfully, the brand is in a much better place now. But as I said, Vince is out and the brand is gonna live on regardless, right? So it is what it is, and that's great, right? But yeah, in the meantime though, unless you genuinely don't care about wrestling or you don't want to see anything about Vince, I highly recommend checking this out, man. This is some solid work, man. This is some solid work.